Okay. Well, thank you very much for the opportunity to be able to come and to speak here as part of this forum. I've enjoyed the things that I've heard so far. I have found them informative. I've found them really quite useful. I apologize in advance that my talk probably won't follow in that tradition, but hopefully I'll be able to say some things that a few people might find worthwhile. My name's Jarom McDonald. I'm a faculty member in the College of Humanities. I direct an office there, the Office of Digital Humanities. And I'm here to talk a little bit about what we really mean when we say the digital humanities, what it encompasses, what types of activities we're trying to be engaged in, and what we think it means for the campus community at large. And I'm going to frame some of my words within a story. It's a story that I know quite well. It's actually my own story. And I do so primarily because, to paraphrase F. Scott Fitzgerald, really the only thing we have to work with is our own material. So I hope you'll excuse my little self-indulgence here. This is a picture of me when I was 4 years old. This is my older brother here as well. Some of you may recognize the walls of the Talmadge building there. This was on one of our monthly outings to my father's office, where he would bring us in late at night and allow us to peck around on the keyboards while he actually got some real work done. It's a story that actually maybe many of you also have as part of your history growing up. I like to consider myself a digital native before there really were digital natives. We got our own PC in our house soon after this, I think 1980, 1981. I remember very fondly in 5th grade when I turned in my Great Brain report and I typed it up and printed it out on the brand new laser printer we just got, and my teacher complimented me on my excellent typewriter skills. And as I continued to grow in the use of technology, just in my environment, I assumed that was the way that other kids were growing up as well. And it was maybe a little difficult for me to comprehend that it was my upbringing was perhaps a little unusual for the age that we were in. And so, of course, given my upbringing, by the time I turned 18 and I went off to college, the natural thing for me to do was to get a PhD in American literature. Right? Now, whether through some sort of subconscious rebellion against my father, or more likely because I found some of the content that I was studying in English classes, in language classes, in literature classes so incredibly fascinating, I had this pivot, but I didn't stray very far from the roots that my technological environment upbringing had created around me. As I was in graduate school, I happened to be part of a kind of a momentous occasion at the University of Maryland. They received a $5 million grant from the National Endowment for the Humanities to found one of the very first, what was then called Humanities Computing Centers in the nation. Throughout graduate school, as I continued to work with technology as well as study literature, I gravitated more and more towards finding ways that the things that I could do as a career would be able to meet both of these needs. I wouldn't have to feel like I didn't belong in either, but I could actually straddle both and make it part of the path that I had going forward. Okay. Now here's a picture of someone who's much better on a stage than I am. Of course, this is Steve Jobs. My wife and I like to consider that he's the one directly responsible for setting off a chain of events that led to my 2-year-old daughter singing the soundtrack of Frozen every morning and every night. But of course, he's also much better known for bringing us some very useful devices. And back when he first introduced the iPad, he was up on stage, he said something really quite interesting. He said that at Apple, it's the marriage of technology and the liberal arts, the marriage of technology and the humanities that yields the results that make our hearts sing. And so if you were to ask me what's just kind of the one-sentence statement that defines the digital humanities, this is what I would say. The digital humanities is work at the intersection of technology and the humanities. And I think that this screenshot is really quite apropos at demonstrating what we mean when we're talking about an intersection. Now, I'm not in any way saying that Steve Jobs really fully understood the humanities itself. But it makes for a good quip, but it also allows me to talk a little bit more about how these intersections between these seemingly disparate fields can be so important in today's culture. Now, those who are in the digital humanities academically as a field like to use the metaphor of the big tent and say that really anything can count as the digital humanities. If you're dealing with something that's humanistic, which of course could be language, could be literature, could be culture, could be history, which is everything, and you're dealing with something that it has a technological component, which of course today is also everything, then you fall under the auspices of the digital humanities. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that here at BYU we're trying to do everything all at once. And in fact, in our Office of Digital Humanities, we have some very unique specialties, but we also have some things that we know we don't do very well and that we're trying to learn more about. And thankfully, on campus, there are a lot of colleagues in other academic and service departments that are also working in areas that you may label as the digital humanities, and we are working to try to collaborate with people in the library, for example, people in computer science, in the School of IT. We've had collaborative meetings with people from statistics, from the business school, from the CFAC, all sorts of people who are also working at these intersections, maybe coming at them from different perspectives, are contributing to the types of things that the digital humanities are really quite interested in. Historically, in our college, some of the things that we've always done to give you a better idea of where this has come from, and it's been around since long before there was the term digital humanities, would be things such as corpus studies, language and literary corpora, natural language processing. We have some of the world's experts in natural language processing working in our college and collaborating with people on other parts of campus as well. Print and web publishing from a specific humanities point of view, whether it's through editing or through literature and what that has to say about the world of publishing. Localization and translation, obviously with our emphasis in foreign language instruction in our college, creating software, creating interfaces that are not just language translated, but also culture translated is something that we've always been able to do really quite well. Computer-assisted language learning has been something that has a very strong tradition in our college, and we're continuing to work on the ways that we can pedagogically push forward the use of desktop, mobile, social technologies into language learning. But there are also some things that we've recently started to get much more interested in, and we are, as we're learning more about them ourselves, we're leveraging the expertise that we have both on and off campus for doing that. Things such as text analysis and text mining. What do we do when we have unstructured data and we need to try to find things in it? Data-driven literary studies, or what some people are calling scalable reading. When you take text and you need to do both micro and macro analyses, and you need to actually treat the text as if it were data, and find questions and answers in there that you couldn't get because of the scale of what you're looking at. Geospatial humanities, finding intersections between place and time and the literature and the culture and the history which exists in that place and time. Media discourses are really quite important for us, looking at issues of transnarrativity. What happens when you take a story, you take a folk tale, you take a conversation, and you move it around through mode, you move it around through medium, you move it around through place, and so forth. And the impact and influence of the humanities. We think that we're uniquely poised to be able to look at how the humanities really kind of intersperses into all of the other fields that exist out there. Now, the final slide I wanted to show here, first of all, this is just a fulfillment of my goal to be able to put at least one baseball-related slide in every talk I ever give. But there's also one final metaphor I'm going to leave you with, given, of course, the fact that I'm being in the humanities and like to deal with metaphors. There's a contrast here that I'm showing. A lot of times when people are studying things such as the humanities, they end up kind of in this realm here. They're talking about things. You know, they're providing commentary. And in the digital humanities, we're trying to build a different metaphor. We're trying to get people to play things. We're trying to teach people the technological skills that will enable them to actually get in there and work with things themselves. As they start to understand the world in which we live better, as they start to understand the history that we have, to read the literature, to speak the languages of the world, we want people to actually be able to apply the knowledge, both the technical and the historical knowledge, to really make it a much more informative, much more useful, and for us, a much more complete and fulfilling experience. So, thank you very much.